The evening of March 1, 2014, was supposed to be a peaceful moment for Emily Lambert. A weekend getaway in Carlsbad, New Mexico. Her chance to escape the stresses of work and motherhood. Emily, a 30-year-old teacher and single mother of 2 children, wanted nothing more than to relax with her boyfriend, Robert Early. But what seemed like a carefree weekend would soon spiral into a nightmare, leaving one family shattered and a community devastated. A quiet, isolated town, nestled in the desert, Carlsbad is known for its caverns and its laid-back atmosphere. But on the night of March 1st, a tragedy was unfolding beneath its sleepy surface. Emily Lambert, beautiful and strong, would vanish in the blink of an eye, and soon, the truth about her disappearance would reveal the darkest side of the man she loved. Emily Lambert had always been a dedicated mother. At 30 years old, Emily lived in Bedford, Texas, with her 2 children, ages 6 and 8. As a full-time elementary school teacher, Emily gave everything to her career and her kids. Emily was someone who lived for others, always making sure her children were cared for, always putting family first. But everyone needs a break. Emily had been dating Robert Early for over a year, a man she believed she could trust. Robert was 33, a hard-working oil rig worker, and by all accounts he was good with her kids. Emily's parents, Donna and Stephen Coig, saw Robert as a stable presence in her life, someone who seemed to make her happy. So when Emily planned her weekend getaway to Carlsbad with Robert, no one suspected the danger that would soon unfold. They arrived at the Stevens Inn late in the evening on February 28th, after an 8-hour drive. The next day, they spent time together in nearby towns, dining, shopping, and enjoying each other's company. But as the hours wore on, something seemed off. Emily was becoming increasingly uncomfortable. By the time they reached the Stevens Inn bar later that evening, the tension between them had begun to build. Emily was visibly upset, and, according to Robert's account, she seemed intent on causing drama. Robert told authorities that she had been drinking heavily, becoming more flirtatious with strangers and seeking attention. But what happened next would change everything.
911, what's your emergency?
Hello. My girlfriend went missing. She left last night. I haven't seen her since, and I don't know where she went.
The call was made by Robert Early. His voice shaky, his words filled with confusion and fear. He claimed that Emily had walked out of the bar and disappeared, possibly with another man.
I don't know where she went. I've looked everywhere. She was upset, and I don't know what happened to her. She was really drunk.
Was this truly an unfortunate situation, just a woman walking off after a fight, or was it something far darker? Robert's frantic call to 911 would set off a chain of events, but at that moment, nobody could predict how the case would unfold. Carlsbad, New Mexico, a town that many might pass by without a second thought. Known for its breathtaking caverns and tranquil desert landscape, it seemed like the perfect spot for a getaway. But for Emily and Robert, this town would soon become the setting of a harrowing tale. The Stevens Inn, where Robert and Emily stayed, is a modest roadside hotel. By all outward appearances, it was a peaceful, unassuming place. But inside, room 402 became the epicenter of a twisted and tragic chain of events. The same room where Robert claimed he had spent hours pacing, waiting for Emily to return. Emily's car was still in the parking lot, her purse left in the car, her phone charging in the hotel room. There were no signs of struggle in the room. But Robert's behavior? It didn't quite add up. The police arrived at the Stevens Inn, and Detective Scott Naylor and his partner, Detective Blaine Rennie, were assigned to investigate the case. Carlsbad was a small town, and missing persons cases involving adults were rare. Still, this was no ordinary case. The officers started their work. They interviewed Robert at length. His story, as expected, was filled with holes. Robert had claimed that Emily had walked off, upset and intoxicated, but his timeline didn't match up with the facts. He told the police that he had not seen her after their argument at the bar. But where had she gone? Why had she left without her phone, without her purse, and without any means of communication? Detectives dug deeper, reviewing the hotel's surveillance footage. They found something that didn't match Robert's story. They saw Emily leave the bar, visibly upset and in a hurry, and Robert leaving just minutes after her. But something else caught the detectives' attention. They noticed a man in the footage who looked familiar. Robert had told the police that he had been with Emily all night, but the footage told a different story. Emily Lambert wasn't just a victim. She was a mother, a teacher, and a woman who had her life taken from her far too soon. Born and raised in Bedford, Texas, Emily Lambert was a devoted mother to her 2 children, whom she loved with all her heart. Despite the struggles of being a single mother, she had always put her children's needs first. Emily was passionate about teaching and was known for her caring nature, both inside and outside the classroom. Her mother said Donna Coig tearfully, "She was my heart. She was the kind of woman who would give anything to see her kids happy. And for them, she'd do anything." But in the years leading up to her disappearance, Emily's life had not been without its challenges. Her relationship with Robert early seemed to offer a temporary reprieve from her struggles. But behind closed doors, it was clear that things were more complicated than they appeared. Robert, despite his charm and good intentions, had his own flaws. Emily's friends and family began to notice certain things about him: his jealousy, his control over her, and his tendency to drink heavily. Still, Emily was drawn to him. She believed he cared about her, and he was good with her children. But as the investigation progressed, Emily's family began to wonder. Did Robert know more about her disappearance than he had let on? Was their relationship really as perfect as it seemed? The investigation was intensifying. As detectives began questioning Robert's version of events, they noticed numerous inconsistencies. Robert claimed Emily had left the bar and disappeared without a trace. But why had she left without her phone or purse? Detective Scott Naylor and Detective Blaine Rennie had their doubts from the beginning. Robert's stories weren't lining up. What really happened that night? The detectives reviewed the footage from the hotel's lobby and the bar. At 11:30 p.m., they saw Emily leave the bar, but there was more. Robert was seen leaving just minutes later. He appeared agitated, pacing, and soon after, he was seen returning to the front desk. The detectives began to piece together a different narrative. Robert wasn't as innocent as he seemed. As the investigation progressed, Robert early found himself backed into a corner. Detectives had gathered a collection of evidence, yet his story seemed to change with each passing day. The pieces didn't fit. And so, Detective Rennie and Detective Naylor made a bold decision. Robert was asked to take a polygraph test. He agreed, fully believing that his version of events would hold up under scrutiny. But the truth? The truth was starting to unravel. Polygraph technicians said to him, "Please remain still and answer the questions truthfully. If at any point you feel uncomfortable, you can stop the test." Robert had taken a polygraph test years earlier in a personal matter, but this time, it was different. This time, it wasn't just about his relationship with Emily, it was about her life. The stakes couldn't have been higher. When the results came in, they were clear. Robert had failed miserably. Each question about Emily's disappearance, each answer, had shown signs of deception. Detective Naylor said, "We know you're hiding something, Robert. The truth is out there, and it's time for you to stop playing games." Robert's reaction was one of panic. His face flushed with anxiety. His story had been too convenient, too perfect. But the polygraph didn't lie. It was the first crack in Robert's facade. The polygraph failure shattered his confidence. And it didn't take long for Robert to start to crack under pressure. He was no longer the calm, collected boyfriend who seemed so sure of his story. He was now a man whose guilt was weighing heavily on his shoulders. Robert's voice began trembling, eyes downcast, and he said, I didn't mean to. I never wanted this to happen." At that moment, Robert's truth started to emerge in bits and pieces, broken fragments of a violent night that had spiraled out of control. Robert's account of what transpired that night started with a simple argument. Emily, intoxicated, had become upset, lashing out at Robert, accusing him of being too distant. But what started as a verbal confrontation quickly escalated. A slap, a shove, then the unthinkable. She started getting physical with me. She bit me. She threw me against the wall. I lost control. It was in that moment that Robert admitted to striking Emily, first in the face. Then, repeatedly, his anger fueled by alcohol, his emotions running wild. Emily was no longer the woman he claimed to love. She was the woman who had challenged him, and in his state of rage, he responded violently. His words were filled with regret, but it was too late. Emily was no longer alive. The damage had already been done. Emily Lambert's body was discovered in the most heart-wrenching of ways. Not in a secluded hotel room or even a nearby alley, but discarded, left to be found like trash in the cold, unforgiving desert. The search for Emily had gone from a missing persons case to something far darker, a homicide. The detectives, who had hoped to find her alive, now had to confront the horrific truth. Behind a farmhouse just off the road, Emily's lifeless body was discovered. She had been dragged over 500 feet, her injuries brutal and unrelenting. There was no mercy in what had happened to her. Her body had been left in the elements, her face and head severely swollen from blunt force trauma. The evidence was clear, this was no accident. As the investigation progressed, Robert's arrest was inevitable. He had confessed to his actions, and the evidence painted a grim picture of what happened that fateful night. Robert Early was charged with the kidnapping and murder of Emily Lambert. But for Emily's family, the real devastation was just beginning. Donna Coig said in a broken voice, "When they told me, it was like my heart was ripped out. My daughter was gone, and nothing would bring her back." Donna and Stephen had lost their daughter. The woman who had brightened their lives was now gone forever, and the family was left with the agony of what could have been. Emily's children, young, innocent, were left without their mother, forced to carry on without the woman who had given them everything. The world lost a mother, a daughter, a teacher, and Emily's family, though heartbroken, were determined to honor her legacy. Her children, raised by their grandparents, would remember their mother through stories, photos, and the love she had given them. The trial was an emotional roller coaster for everyone involved. Robert Early had confessed, but the courtroom drama would determine his fate. The prosecution painted a picture of a man who had killed in a fit of rage, whose actions were both cruel and deliberate. The defense, however, tried to shift the narrative, claiming that Robert's actions were the result of being provoked by Emily. But the evidence, her brutal injuries, his inconsistent story, and his polygraph results, spoke volumes. It took mere hours for the jury to reach a verdict. The conviction was clear, guilty on all charges. Robert Early was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Emily Lambert's life may have been taken too soon, but her legacy lives on in the hearts of those who loved her. Her parents, Donna and Stephen, took on the monumental task of raising her two children. Emily's kids may never truly understand the full extent of the loss, but they are surrounded by love that transcends time and tragedy. Emily was more than just a victim. She was a mother, a teacher, and a friend, and her memory will live on as a warning to all. The violence of a toxic relationship can have deadly consequences. Emily's story is not just about tragedy. It's about love. It's about loss. And it's about the unyielding strength of family. For more true crime cases, like and subscribe to Dark Truth Uncovered. Unto the next one, bye for now.